So we're just going to jump right into it. So the point of this is to go over email writing for rock stars. So, which, not rock stars with guitars, just people who you read an email and think, holy crap, that person really knows what they're doing. So the goal here is just to give you some tips and suggestions for how to write good emails. Um, a lot of the people I'm emailing are clients or partners or people we're trying to get to work with us. I know for a lot of you, you're emailing with clients that you might already know, people you already work with, but sometimes you might also be emailing people who maybe you don't know particularly well. Maybe you're trying to expand your relationship in an organization. So these tips should be helpful. There's some general tips that I would recommend you guys all keep in mind. Okay, so first things first, you want to really know your audience and prepare for them. And I think one thing to keep in mind, maybe in the way that I approach email writing, is that my background in writing emails all day long started in working in customer support. So dealing with people who were specifically contacting me with a technical software issue, looking for help and trying to deal with their questions, deal with their answers without kind of stressing them out, getting them more upset. So, troubleshooting, looking for bugs, really trying to do that extra legwork before writing back to them. Now, the other kind of things that I think I've learned over the years also kind of gets into sort of figuring out what is the goal of the email. So, number one, when you're writing an email to someone, you want to think about how well do you know them. If you're writing an email to someone and maybe you're going back and forth, I think, at first when you're writing emails, it's very wise, I would say, to stick to your standard clean format. Hi, how's it going? Answer your questions, etc. You're going to find sometimes that you're dealing with people who don't like to read long emails and they like to write short emails. If that's the case, it actually is okay if you're chatting with a client over email to sort of adopt the style that they're using. So if someone's just responding to you in one-liners, certainly you shouldn't feel like you need to adhere to a clear format. If you want to just be going back and forth almost in a text message style with a client, it's definitely okay. It kind of builds that camaraderie, I think, a little bit when you're responding in kind. But I would say you always want to start from a clean, organized, professional sense. And there's also a way to write emails to help people understand what you're looking for, take action easily. You want to really also be mindful of, how busy is this person? If you're writing to someone who gets 50 emails an hour and you need to ask them to do something that might take them 20 minutes, you don't want it to also take 20 minutes for them to write your email, or sorry, to read your email. You want it to be very clear to them what's actually the goal, what do you need them to do, and how long might it even take them? Or, what can you do to help them do it, right? So don't just email someone saying, oh, can you send me the finance sheets? Really try to provide additional context information that's going to help someone help you, because usually if you're contacting someone, you are asking them for something. Try not to ask them for any more than you really need to. So that kind of gets into the goal aspect here. Do you want them to take an action? Or do you want them to come away with a particular piece of information? Do you want them to really walk away saying, okay, the next thing I need to do is this thing, or the thing I need to carry into my next meeting is knowledge of this fact? Or do you just want to, impress them with your level of understanding of the problem and create that confidence? Sometimes when you're emailing clients, you're just sharing updates. I think that's probably what a lot of you might be doing, especially if you're anchors. So again, you just want to make sure that the way the email is written and formatted makes them say, oh, okay, this person knows what they're doing. I don't have to worry. These consultants, they know what's going on. Any questions so far? Cool. Okay, so like I've already alluded to, empathy is key. So don't rush to give an answer. Really think about, have I answered their question? And think about what questions might they have as a follow-up. If they asked a question, maybe you weren't too clear on what it was, don't just go back and say, hey, I don't understand your question. You can provide a couple answers. Hey, I think you were asking this. If that's the case, this is the answer. But if you were also asking this and this, here's the answer here as well. It is such a pain, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this if you're dealing with like customer support from a bank or a telecommunications company, where it just seems like they never understand your question and they're always just sending you in circles. Almost feels like it's more work to keep getting the help from them than to say, oh, forget it, I can't be bothered anymore. You do not want to be offering that type of experience to anyone that you're communicating with. So always keep that in mind. If you're sending someone a file that they need to read, if they're sending them a link they need to go action, as soon as they click on that link, is it going to work? Is it clear what they need to do once they get through that step? Make sure if you're asking someone to do something, that what you're actually asking them to do is clear and it's possible without them having to follow up. Because if you ask them to do something and they click on the link and they can't do it, Not every time are they going to come back and tell you that. They're just going to not do it. And now it's been a waste of time. And it kind of makes you look a bit silly because you didn't even try to make sure that it was going to work before you sent it over. And again, you want to make them understand what's really the point here. If they're reading a whole email, especially if it's a long one, you want to make sure that it's by the time they get to the end, they really understand what you were trying to get them to understand. Um, Let them see the work you're doing as well, right? If you've been chatting with other people on your team, collecting information, make sure that they understand that, right? If you're emailing a client who maybe has been talking to a different product manager on the team, and now you're the new product manager taking over, you don't want them to think that you're just walking in like, oh, hey, I'm the new product manager. Tell me what's going on. You can say, hey, I talked to this person. I learned all this stuff. It sounds like this is what's going on. Here are my questions. What should we do next? Don't make it seem like you are not in communication with the rest of your colleagues. You really want to show that when you're asking someone a question, that you've kind of done, again, the legwork to really figure out all of the possible context that would make you prepared to have this conversation with them. Any questions there so far? Okay. So a few things to keep in mind when you're writing an email. You're going to want to write for multiple perspectives. Some people like their email short and sweet. Others love that long, detailed context. Some people need different things in different moments, and you can accommodate both. In general, the main technique I would say for you guys to keep in mind, especially when you're writing emails to clients, you want to start at the very top, explaining in a very short summary, what is the takeaway or the action item? And then you can go into, okay, these are the extra details. This is the information you need. But within the first 2 or 3 sentences of that email, if you're asking someone to do something or you're looking for them to come away with some conclusion, that needs to be right at the start. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of context you can add, but that top part of the email should be something that you could almost send by itself, and the rest is more of a nice to have to really demonstrate the value that you're adding to the table and really demonstrate that you know what's going on and providing more information in case they need to dig into something a bit deeper. That also helps too, maybe they need to forward it to an assistant or someone who can look into something for them. Now they don't have to come back to you and get more information. If that executive could say, oh, okay, I see there's an issue here and there's a ton of context, let me send it to someone on my team and they can take it from there. The other thing I would say, formatting. Writing long stuff, and I'm going to show a bunch of examples of this. Formatting can certainly help you break things up, highlight what's the most important thing for people to be looking at, make it easy for people to understand, right? It's back to that point of empathy. You really want to make it easy for people to literally and visually read your emails by really thinking about how does it look? How easy is it to read? Have I used the world's smallest font? Have I used a strange font? Am I using 5 types of font? Again, don't do any of those things. Keep your formatting very clear and simple. Take the time to edit. It doesn't take 5 minutes to write an email. It can take a little bit of time sometimes. If you're going to take all that time to write it, take the time to edit it, clean up your mistakes. And of course, you want to be a little bit friendly when you can. And I would say always try to end with a question. This is not going to be in every example that I show you guys, but I think one thing that I often see people end an email with is, let me know if you have any questions. Let me know what you think. Get back to me if. Those are just sentences. They're not really welcoming to say, hey, please actually do get back to me. So I always try to, whatever I'm ending with, flip it to a question. And I think I actually gave some examples of this. Okay. So things like, does that make sense? What do you think makes sense as a next step? Is there anything you want us to clarify? It's a small difference, but by ending with the question, it changes the nature of the engagement. It invites people in a more friendly kind of way to get back to you. And often, if you're someone who's very busy, they might just be scrolling through the email, look for that question mark and flip you an answer back to that question. They might read nothing else. So that question mark is an indicator. Okay, here, this is really the call to action and what they want me to do. A couple of other tips. If you're sending emails about the same topic, maybe it's project updates, maybe it's just an issue that's ongoing, try to use the same thread and just reply to keep people on the same topic. Now, you don't always want to be, having an email thread that's like 500 emails long. So I would say use this concept sparingly, but certainly if the email that you're sending is going to refer to or be relevant to a previous conversation, it's always a nice idea to try to keep it on the same thread and just reply back so everyone's in the loop and all of that information is in one place. That way, if the person you're contacting, reads that email, wants to compare it to the previous one, they don't have to go looking for it. It's already there. Hyperlinks. If you are linking to something, don't just drop the full URL. put some words and hyperlink it. Again, small difference, but it just makes the formatting a lot cleaner. And if you go into your Gmail account, there's a gear in the top right corner, and you can click on that, and then it'll open a bar on the right side page, and you can go to all settings. I would say play around with that because there's a few interesting features you can use to make your inbox management a bit easier. And undo send, I believe, is a built-in feature in Gmail, and it can honestly be a lifesaver. If you read something, as soon as you sent it, obviously that's the exact moment you're going to realize there's a typo, or maybe you had the wrong person included on the email, whatever it might be. Click that undo send. I think you can get it to like up to 30 seconds that you have to recall that email. Just a really nice kind of simple tip to have in mind. You also want to choose a decent subject line and try to make it clear who you are. So, sometimes if I'm emailing someone that might not be someone I'm talking to on a regular basis, or maybe someone new in an organization that I'm trying to start a conversation with, I will actually write tribal scale in the subject line. So it's very obvious who I am, where I'm contacting someone from, and they don't have to kind of be racking their brain. It also kind of helps, when they're searching with things later, if you have things in the subject line or the email related to, again, who you are, the context and kind of main points of the topic. Let's say you're emailing about a project. Make sure the project name is kind of in the email somewhere. That way, if they're searching for this later, again, they're going to be able to find it. Any questions so far? Okay, that one we went through. Okay, the other thing I mentioned is you want to try to be at least a little bit friendly in your email. Certainly once you've had that relationship with a client, it's a lot easier to do that. Oh, hey, how was the barbecue that you went to this weekend? Theoretically, if you're chatting with a client on a regular basis, you're building that rapport, you're building that relationship, you know a bit about them, and it makes it a lot easier. But starting off an email, these are some nice, easy phrases you guys can use. Hey, person, hello, hi. I would say hi or hello would be sort of your best bets. I would avoid hey if you can. Great to hear from you. Thanks for your quick response. Appreciate the quick reply. Try to really think that, someone to send you an email, sometimes it's simple, sometimes it really takes time. They've got a million other things going on. So try to demonstrate that appreciation. Just kind of simple, friendly ways to seem like a nice person in your email communications, basically. We're just curious, if there's maybe certain types of emails that I didn't cover here or any questions that you guys have.
I got a question. What's your biggest frustration when you get a bad email? What comes glaring out at you in a bad email?
Yeah, I think in a bad email, the one thing that drives me the most kind of bananas is the lack of starting a conversation. I think, again, I kind of like I said at the beginning, actually probably before you joined, Sheila, but I like to see questions in emails. Do you think this makes sense? What is your perspective on this? You're not just writing an email usually to send a piece of information. You want to start that conversation. And so I think, especially when I'm seeing emails that are going to clients, I like to see those questions, the opportunity to give someone a reason to respond or an opportunity to respond, and to show that, we're not just here to send stuff at you. We're here to listen to you and start talking about something. So I think for me, that's kind of probably lack of questions or calls to action, like what's really the point of this, and then also just bad formatting. So things being too jumbled, not being kind of spaced out enough, or not providing enough context, which again is I think kind of similar to the idea of having a question or starting that conversation, having a call to action, a little bit of context about what's the point of this, or what have you done as legwork already to start this communication in the background. I think all of those things demonstrate value to the client to build that trust. And I mean, is there anything specifically wrong with sending a tactical email? Not necessarily, but it's a bit of a missed opportunity. You only have so many chances to chat with your clients. So you really want to make sure that every opportunity that you're coming across your desk, you are thinking about, how am I demonstrating value? How am I starting a conversation? And am I making it easy for them to understand what I need them to do?
I got a follow up for internal communication. Okay. When it's what is best practice between sending an email or Slack?
Oh, I don't know if I'm the right person to think about that, because for internal, I actually really prefer Slack. I don't like to use email very often for internal stuff because I don't think that everyone in the team is in their inbox a lot. I know for if we're in sales, marketing, ops, we're in our inbox all day long. My kind of sense of at least how I see you guys accepting meeting invitations is that the engineers are not looking at their inboxes a ton. So I perceive that Slack is better for internal communications, but I mean, I'll throw it out to the rest of you maybe to argue with me, but I think I prefer Slack in general for internal stuff, unless it's like a very specific policy update that we would email to everyone. But again, I think Slack is nice and clean for searching. The other nice thing about Slack is that, if you don't work here 6 months ago when a policy was sent out an email and then you start working here, it might be hard for you to find that information. So if it's in Slack, historical Slack is searchable as by new employees. So if it's something that you think you would like for people to be able to discover later on, I think Slack is a good bet because it's more searchable than like a one-time email.
I agree.
Sweet.
One thing I will say is Slack messages that just start with like, hey, and then nothing after. I don't know what other people, but it gives me anxiety.
Yeah, it's true. If you are just like, hey, next message. Do you have a minute? Next message. The amount of anxiety and stress you are unknowingly causing is absurd. I would definitely recommend if you're going to write a message, write the whole message. Um, Same thing goes with like meeting invites. Don't send people meeting invites that are just called quick chat. Put an agenda. What's the point of the meeting? What are you going to be talking about? You don't want to stress people out and you don't want to waste people's time. Okay, there we go. That's a wrap. Thanks, guys. I'll see y'all later.